This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. We're fortunate tonight to have as our guest my good friend, Representative Steve Clouse from Ozark. Steve was on the show about a year or so ago, and he and I go back way back, folks. He's one of my best friends in the world. I've never not known Steve Clouse. Our mamas were best friends growing up together in Pike County, and Miss Ruth married Jimmy Clouse in Ozark, and then Steve and I have known each other all our life. And then we wound up being in the same fraternity at the University of Alabama. Steve grew up in Ozark, I grew up in Troy, and went to the University of Alabama in the same fraternity, and then I ain't saying I'm going to say his age. He's about 4 or 5 years younger than me, but 5 years younger than me. But I have known Steve all my life, and we represented adjoining districts in the Wiregrass. I had Pike, and I had a little bit of, I had all of Pike and Northern Dale, and Steve had the rest of Dale, most of Dale, where he's from. And so folks get confused. I was flattered by that, you know. But I didn't mean to take up so much time, but I'm glad to have my old friend Steve Clouse on the show today. Steve, y'all got a lot on your plate this year.
We certainly do. We had a lot on our plate last year. We were drinking out of a fire hose and standing on our head and learning how to speak Chinese all at the same time, and things have calmed down a little bit, but we have some serious issues ahead of us.
Backing up, you've been in the House how many years?
This is my 18th year now.
18th year. You started, that'd be
94.
94. Mm-hmm. And the first 3 terms, it was Democratic majority.
First four.
First 4. So your first 4 terms, you were in a minority party, and it really was like a good 20-vote difference, wasn't it? 15 or 20-vote margin.
Well, when I got elected in 94, we kicked our numbers in the Republican up to 31 out of 105, and so it steadily grew every year until last year we just broke through and got to 62, and then had 4 that switched from the Democrat Republican, so now we got 66.
It's 66 to
39.
39. And that includes the swap between the guy in Pickens and
right.
The 2 up there changed.
One to Democrat to Republican, the other one from Republican to Democrat. So
that's a pretty big margin, 27 seats.
Yeah, it is.
And so it's a supermajority. What's the Senate now? 25-10?
22 to 12 and 1 independent.
Right. And Harry Ann's really, she don't always vote with the Republicans, though, does she?
Well, I don't. I have enough to do in the House. I don't really follow that. But
in the House, though, this is the first time since Reconstruction has been a Republican majority. And I've got to say this. You know, I served for 16 years. Steve, whether it's good, bad, or whatever, the productivity under the first
there's no question about it.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, we'd have 1 or 2 issues and massage them the entire session, you know, and we'd finally resolve them one way or the other. I'm talking about y'all tackled a dozen major issues.
A dozen issues that Republicans have been bringing up for years and could never get it through committee, and we got it all the way through the whole process in one year. And did congressional and state school board redistricting on top of it.
Listen, that's enumerated. You passed immigration, voter ID, name some more.
Well, of course, in that special session we passed a law banning double dipping, the pack-to-pack transfers, the new ethics law.
So going back to that, you got new ethics, pack-to-pack, double dipping.
Right.
And then starting the regular session, you had immigration.
Immigration, the voter ID, of course, the rolling reserve fund there. That will stop proration in education. So there's just a number of issues right there.
It was a myriad of conservative issues, and it just was a productive session. Actually, you know, we've had Governor Bentley on the show, and he acknowledges this, that really it was the House and Senate working congruently and almost independently of the governor's office. He was for a lot of the same stuff, but you know, it wasn't his instigation. Like in past years, a governor would offer a platform or program and propose something, and the legislature would dispose of it. In this case, he just kind of got on the bandwagon.
That's right.
A lot of times, y'all have your own agenda in the House.
But he was supportive of those measures, and he signed on to them, so he was part of the process.
Steve, he served with you 8 years.
That's right, for 8 years, and we sat pretty close to each other. And of course, he's represents the Tuscaloosa area, and of course, I went to the University of Alabama like you did, so we had a close camaraderie there, talking about Alabama football and such.
You know, talking about somebody who follows football, that guy from Tuscaloosa, Judge England's son, Chris England.
Chris knows a lot.
He knows more about football recruiting
Sure
than I've ever
does.
seen in my life. That guy knows everything about recruiting. He's the most fun guy to talk to.
Yeah, he is. They got several from Tuscaloosa, the John Merrill and Bill Poole. They keep up with it too, so they're a good resource.
Sure. Steve and I talk politics all the time. Well, I hadn't talked to him in a long time like we used to, but we just sit and talk politics. He knows as much about politics as anybody I know in the state. Tell me this, you know, this is not as high profile a year with the judge races. And really and truly, we only have 2 judgeships statewide up for election, the Chief Justice race and then that Woodall seat when he's retired out of 5 seats. The things that passed in the ethics session, and it's been glossed over, not talked about as much, as the 2014 year evolves and looks ahead, this year and in 2014, how do you think the pack-to-pack change and also the double dipping will change not just, let me ask you this question and then we'll get in that second. First of all, the amount of money that's being spent in the Supreme Court race is about a fourth of what it's been being. It's up like $4 million. I don't think they'll reach $1 million with all the races up. I don't think that Moore and Braddock and Malone will either, all 3 put together will raise $1 million.
I don't think so either.
Now, in your opinion, you know, when my first terms in the House, tort was the issue. That's no longer the issue, and the Republicans and the conservatives control the Supreme Court. Do you think that's the reason the dollars are down? The demise of the Democratic Party is a second reason, because there's really no Democratic candidates running for the Supreme Court. And thirdly, how do you think that's, as far as this election, how do you seeing the pack-to-pack and the things changing that?
Right. I think all 3 of those reasons are contributing, in addition to the downturn in the economy. Not as much money out there. There's 4 reasons out there, but yeah, I think you're seeing the pack-to-pack, the ban on pack-to-pack transfers having an effect in this year's judges race and have a really big effect in 2014. A lot of people didn't want their names on the campaign finance form. A lot of candidates didn't want some of the money they were receiving from some sources to be on those campaign finance forms. So that's why you had the proliferation of the PACs, over 700 PACs in the state, and that's led to the public not knowing the source of those funds, and that's not right for transparent government. And I think it's going to have a tremendous effect in 2014 when the legislative races pick back up. So
in this year, if you had to enumerate the reason the money's down, the interest down, you'd say, first of all, probably maybe the demise of the party. The party, how would you rank them if you had to say that? Would you think the pack-to-pack's the most important reason the money's down?
I don't know if it could. I think they're all right in there together at this point. Pack-to-pack, the economy, demise of the Democratic Party, and
all about equal.
All about equal there. But I think in 2014 you'll see a real, when the legislative races kick up and the governor's race, so that's going to have a tremendous influence. The pack-to-pack is.
So you see the money in 2014 diminishing too?
I do.
In legislative races?
Right.
What was the average cost of a competitive House race last time, if you had to guess?
I would say, of course, it varies based on what district you live in. If you're in a more urban area, your television market's going to be a lot more expensive. But I would say a House race is averaging in the 150,000 range.
That much?
And the Senate
races 50 or 60.
Averaging in the 400,000 to 500,000 range.
Did not know it had gotten that expensive. So House races are 150 and Senate on the winning are 450.
Right.
So you think that'll diminish? What would you guess by the pack-to-pack? A third, maybe?
Down to about a third.
That much difference?
Yeah.
Sure. What about the double dipping? Will that'll make some people have to get out, or
the way we finally compromised on that bill. Very, very controversial, but as you know, when you were in the legislature, it became prolific there, where legislators would get elected and then all of a sudden get a job at the local community college.
Right.
An administrative job usually. Many times they didn't even show up except to pick up their check, and,
right.
and now with direct deposit, they don't even have to do that. So, but of course, it led to the corruption there in the junior college system. We saw the different people going to prison over that deal. A tremendous conflict of interest, and something had to be done. And of course, we passed a bill that will disallow a state employee, whether it be junior college or state trooper or whoever you work for, Department of Human Resources or wherever, from also serving in the legislature. They'll have to make a choice after the 2014 elections. If they get elected and they have one of those jobs, they're going to have to give up one of them. So it'll, of course, they'll make that decision before they run.
Half a dozen like that now.
Yeah, there's there's probably still a good 10 to 12.
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Yeah. So it'll change some. Talking about the legislative seats, Steve, you're not on reapportionment.
Yes, I am.
You're on reapportionment?
Yeah,
Well, the congressional went down pretty easily.
That's right.
Because there was a lot of agreement.
Right.
There wasn't much change. Terry Sewell got the people she wanted.
That's right.
Everybody enhanced their district. It was like everybody came to the table. Is it going to be that easy for legislative?
No. It's going to be very controversial.
So you actually own the committee.
Right. I represent the 2nd Congressional District in the House on the reapportionment committee. And we've already started working in the different regions, trying to figure out who needs to lose, who needs to gain.
Do you work on the House and the Senate, or
just the House?
Okay, who's working on the Senate? Who's your counterpart in the Senate?
I think Brian Taylor is.
Given that, I've asked Dick Brubaker this, and you being from Ozark in the middle of this district, you're also in the middle of my viewing audience. I mean, my viewing audience is Montgomery, Talga, Elmore, and the Wiregrass. Dale, Pike, Houston, which is where we're being viewed. Where are the changes? Where's the growth? The growth's obviously in Talga and Elmore in the 2nd district.
Well, up here in the river region, no question about it. It's in Talga.
How's Dothan doing? How's Houston?
Houston County grew a pretty good bit. They grew from about 90,000 people to a little over 100,000.
How about Dale?
Dale grew a little bit.
Pike grew a little bit.
Pike grew a little. Coffee grew a pretty good bit.
Did it? What did it go from?
It went from around 42,000 up to about 49,000.
What's the average House district?
Average House seat will be 45,500, and of course the Senate seats will be 3 times that amount.
What was it last time?
It was about 42,500, so each one of them is going to grow about 3,000 people. But the difference in last reapportionment versus this one is you had a 5% deviation, we call it. In other words, you could be 5% over that ideal number or 5% or less. This time we're going to go to 1%, either be 1% over or 1% less than that ideal population. That will help prevent the gerrymandering.
Steve, in this district, it's hard to do it when you don't have someone doing it, but it looks like the area that's been misrepresented, and I use that word rather than malrepresented, is Elmore and Talga. They don't have many resident legislators given their population. Is that going to be a chopping issue in this reapportionment? Y'all going to say it's only fair, even though you only have 1 or 2 there fighting for that?
Well, the issue always has been with Elmore and Talga. Of course, I think they'll have more strength this time. Is that Montgomery County has always liked to have an even split, not so much on the party side, but well, it's become a party side between Republican and Democrat. So they've always wanted to keep even numbers, either 6 or 8, and so they've got 3. Have had 3 white Republicans and 3 black Democrats.
Currently.
Well, right now, of course, Joe Hubbard won.
So you have 7 seats.
So now you got 6 still.
Okay.
You got 1 white Democrat, 2 white Republicans, and 3 black Democrats.
Who are the representatives from Montgomery now?
Well, of course, you got Alvin Holmes, John Knight, Thad McClammy.
All right.
Then you got Joe Hubbard.
All right. Then Wren.
And Jay Love.
And now, Wren goes into Elmore, too, doesn't he?
He goes into Elmore a good bit. Now, Montgomery's population has been stagnant. And of course, all the other ones have started growing.
So Montgomery has not grown. County.
Right. They've not grown. So they're going to have an issue there whether or not they're going to be able to keep 6 resident House members. in the new reapportionment.
It's hard to do it without having an overlapping of Elmore and Autauga
That's
into
right.
Montgomery. You've
Right.
got to have some spillover into Montgomery.
And Autauga County, they have an issue there where the city of Prattville is in both counties,
Right.
Elmore and Autauga, and they want their House member to represent all of the city of Prattville, which would take him into two counties, and that's the issue there between Elmore and Autauga.
Well, how do you see that being resolved? I mean, you're going to be on the
Right.
You're being stretched like this. I know I was in that position.
That's right.
I would have somebody come to me and say, I got to have this. You know, Jimmy Clark was speaker. He was a crusty old fellow.
Oh yeah.
And I said, Mr. Jimmy, I'm having a hard time. Seth Hammett wants this precinct, and Joe Carruthers wants this one, and I can't. He says the cardinal rule is take care of yourself first.
That's right.
He said, heck with the rest of them. So, but going back there, I know they're fighting with you over that because
it's like it's a big puzzle. You know, you move more in here, you take some away from over here, and then that affects those outlining districts. You know, so it's like a big puzzle that you're trying to put together, and it's really difficult when you're trying to put the middle part of the puzzle together. You know, if you go start on the edges like we are down in southeast Alabama, we can pretty much piece it together on the edges.
Will you start from the edge then when you do
Yes.
it? So because since you're on the committee, you'll start with Houston first.
We'll start with we'll start in the southeast corner. We'll start down there in Mobile and Baldwin and start moving up, and then on the northeast, northwest sections and start moving
Well,
down.
speaking of the wiregrass, how do you see it shaping up? How is your district on par?
I don't think there's going to be much difference
In the wiregrass.
In the wiregrass, we've got to make some changes around the edges.
But it's not much.
Not much.
So the
Five or
districts
six.
will stay about the same.
They'll stay about the same in the wiregrass.
Now, well, you want to stay in Houston, though? You like Houston, having Houston?
Well, I've got a lot of good friends in Houston. They've been good to me, but that's the way it's going to work out. I'll still have
Well, coffee's gonna have a little over. Somebody's got to get a part of coffee then.
I think Mike Jones in Andalusia will be coming over and get part of.
How many does Covington have?
Covington County it's going to work out just right for them because they're going to have to pick up about 4,300 folks, and Coffee's going to have to lose about 43.
So you put those coffee cans in
Right.
with Covington. That's
Right.
an easy fit.
Right.
And your stuff down there fits pretty easily.
Right.
You just move.
Yeah.
Where do you put those extra 10,000 Houston County people?
Oh, well, we of course our districts are
Growing. That's right. You got to go up 4,000 anyway.
Yeah, we're going to grow.
So you can absorb 4,500 of them yourself.
That's right, Donnie. I'll pick up about 1,500. Donnie Chastain and Geneva County will come and pick up
That's
some.
right. Because Neiman always needs some.
And of course Paul Lee, he has all of Houston. He'll grow some, and then Dexter Grimsley and Abbeville.
So it's going to fit perfectly in the wiregrass.
It'll fit good.
The only problem is going to be in Autauga and Elmore, isn't it?
In this area, Autauga, Elmore, and Montgomery, it's going to be an issue. Sure is.
But y'all will keep an eye toward maybe giving some deference to maybe having a resident legislator in Elmore more or something. I guess it doesn't really matter, I guess, to the committee, does it? I mean, is it?
Well, they have a resident.
Mask is the only one, though.
He's
isn't
in Elmore. Of course, Paul Beckman is in Autauga. And of course, they're going to have an issue with the number of people that Greg Wren has in Elmore.
They're going to have a bigger issue with the Senate.
Right.
That's where the bigger issue is going to be.
That's where, yeah.
That's where the bigger issue is going to be right there.
And of course, in Autauga and Elmore too, it's being like in the middle of the state, they may shift up into Chilton County and over and over that way, maybe toward where Tallapoosa is and over in Lee County and stuff. So
Steve, let me change from reapportionment. You're on Ways and Means, General Fund. You know that. What in the world y'all gonna do?
We're in a serious situation. Of course, the governor made one little effort there to combine the education and general fund budgets, and that's not a bad idea if you had plenty of money in the education fund and it was just overflowing. But it's just barely getting by. We've been in proration 3 of the last 5 years. The economy's picking up, and education is going to be okay. It's not going to be great, but it's going to be okay, but not enough for it to go, any of it to go in the general fund.
He didn't get much of a good response on that, did he?
No, and he says we're going to change our mind, and I don't think we will. Like we just need a couple $100 million more in the general fund on a steady basis from somewhere, and of course, in the immediate future, I know we're filming this right now, and the BP trial is supposed to start next Monday.
So we could have some windfall from the BP.
We could have a settlement that could hopefully give us a little money for next year. But you don't never know how that's going.
That's why there's talk that you may have a special session after the regular to wait and see if the BP money. Is that the reason you think that?
Well,
I couldn't figure out what the reason for that.
In conjunction with the fact that when they see the initial budget that we're going to present in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a lot of screaming and hollering that we may not can get an agreement in the regular session. It may have to be in September.
You know, viewers, what Steve's alluding to, and obviously many of you viewers know this, is that Alabama has a constitutional provision. You can't spend more than what you bring in.
That's right.
I mean, you've got to spend what, you can't be like the federal government, just print money. You got to spend what you got. And the general fund, it really is in dire straits. It is. It's 25% lower than it was last year. And I don't know how y'all craft a budget around that. I mean, what do you do? Just come back and cut it?
I think there's some individual departments that we can make some changes in some of the fee structures, something like in public safety and agriculture and industries and conservation, natural resources. But the two big elephants in the room are Medicaid and corrections. And we're going to have to, in the state level, we're going to have to address corrections. We're either going to have to build more prisons, or we're going to have to let some nonviolent criminals get out a little bit earlier. I know people don't like to hear that, but sooner or later the federal government's going to make us. The Medicaid problem, I'm not sure we or any other state can solve that problem on our own, and it's killing every state in the nation. It's going to have to be some type of national solution on Medicaid.
We get a better match than most people do.
Right, we get
over 2 to 1, almost.
It's over 2 to 1. It's anywhere from it's changed over the last few years from $2.14. I think we're at $2.38 we get from the feds for every dollar we put in.
I had somebody, I think it was Matt MacArthur, I was talking to on the show here, and he gave me a statistic. He said that almost 8 out of 10 people who live in nursing homes, it's over 75%, are Medicaid.
I think it's close to 90%.
It's over 80 then.
Yeah, it's over 80.
Right. So most of the people, 8 or 9 out of 10 people in the nursing homes.
And you have just about 90% of our, if we didn't have Medicaid, if we didn't do the minimum amount to get that federal match, about 90% of the nursing homes would close down. Yeah. Every hospital in the state, not one could stay open without Medicaid.
Is that right?
So it's very important to our hospitals and nursing
homes.
He
said over half the live births in the state are now, 50% are Medicaid babies, born with Medicaid money.
I wouldn't doubt that. I don't know that statistic in particular.
Steve, having said that, you can't cut Medicaid. You can't give up a 2 to 1 match.
No, we have to do the minimum amount there. We're trying to come up with some innovative ideas on maybe higher deductibles for pharmacy and stuff like that, you know. But it's like I said, it's a national problem, and it's going to get. You know, we hear a lot about the so-called Obamacare that's supposed to kick in 2014. Well, it's designed to shift more Medicaid recipients onto the state's rolls there, and we're scheduled to have about 200,000 more Alabamians put on the Medicaid rolls in 2014. I
had a legislator, I want to think it was Cam Ward, on here this show, and told me that a year ago, about the time you were on here last time. He says Medicaid is not. He said if the health care thing, the Washington health care thing, he was the first one brought. It will take up what percent of the general fund now is Medicaid taking?
It's almost a third. Well, it's about a third. You take corrections and Medicaid together, and it's almost 50%. Those two.
And see, you take if you do that, and it becomes almost intolerable. You can't hardly afford it.
And that's why I said on the Medicaid part, it's not just us. It's 50 states in the nation. It's going to have to be some type of national solution. And you know, you look at California, and of course they don't have a deficit spending provision in their constitution like we do. They're $26 billion in debt and just barely making it out there. So it's got to be some type of national solution. I don't know.
You know, having said that, this problem has not been brought on by the legislature. In defense of the people in the legislature, this is a national economic downturn. And I contend, Steve, that the situation that the state of Alabama is in now is worse than the Great Depression, because during the Great Depression there wasn't much the state government was doing anyway. They had highways, they had public safety,
and prisons,
and that was about it. Medicaid did not exist.
That's right.
I mean, so you didn't have a lot of the programs you have now. So if you had to cut money, you say, well, you know, we'll cut a few troopers out. We'll, you know, not have quite as many guards. We'll not build a road here or there. So I contend that the situation you're facing as a member of the Ways and Means Committee of the General Fund was not your problem. You didn't cause it. The national economy was not caused by the House member representatives.
And back then, too, you didn't have the Department of Human Resources.
Exactly.
The food stamps and those type things.
Have you thought about that? That this is worse than the Depression? No. Have you ever thought that concept?
No, absolutely.
I mean, that's
Right.
I thought the other day I was talking to somebody, I said, well, this is worse than depression.
That's right.
Because those programs didn't exist. You know, one thing I think we ought to clarify with our viewers is some general fund agencies are not affected by this because they have their own money. Transportation.
Right.
Elaborate on that.
Well, transportation, of course, they have their own fund that's funded by the gasoline tax.
Right.
Sort of a pay-as-you-go
And
type
y'all
thing.
ain't appropriate. It just goes straight there.
No,
doesn't
it goes straight to the highway department.
Yeah.
So they're not included in the general fund. Of course, they're cash strapped too. They're saying the price of gasoline, as it goes up, people drive less miles. That brings in less tax dollars to DOT. And of course, with the price of oil so high, that makes asphalt a lot higher too. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. They're getting the double whammy there.
ABC has their own money.
They generate their own money through the sale of liquor in the state stores.
Who else gets money with all
Well,
that?
Department of Conservation and Natural Resources,
Right,
they
that's
have their
right.
own fees for hunters and fishermen and that type thing. So.
You alluded to something while ago, and I was going to ask you this. You were saying the Agriculture Department and the Public Safety, you can raise the cost of
I think there's some
speeding
fees
tickets or something?
well, that not necessarily speeding tickets, other fees like driver's license
Oh,
and those
okay.
type things. That we can make some adjustments there, take care of them, and the same thing with ag and industries. You know, some of these.
He's really been cut over there.
Oh yeah, it's devastating. You go and look at next time your viewers are at a gas pump and pumping gas, they can look at that sticker on there, and it'll have Ron Sparks' name still on there because they don't have any inspectors out there inspecting. Not only the gasoline, for the weights of the scales at grocery stores, we've had to cut those employees. So it's you know, it becomes a consumer issue here before long.
Steve, only about 2 minutes left. I was going to ask you, the texting and driving is going to pass, isn't it?
I think so. I think we finally we've passed in the House, but it hadn't moved in the Senate. But I think the Senate's going to pass this year. It's gotten to be such a problem on the roads.
It has. It's like it's almost. I've heard some people with public safety say it's caused more accidents than,
And it's particularly
than drunk driving.
well, it's particularly a teen problem. You can go to any roadways close to a high school in the morning and just stand there and watch them, and they're texting. They're not looking at the road.
They do it at Carroll High School.
Oh yeah, all over everywhere.
Well, you got a lot on your plate.
We sure do.
You're right in the middle of it, being on the Ways and Means Committee, and also on reapportionment. Two of the biggest issues.
That's right.
It's time we had Representative Klaus on our program because do you think redistricting will be addressed in the regular session?
I think we're going to call a special session, or we're going to have the governor call one. He's the only one that can call it within the regular session, so we won't eat up any regular session days.
Right.
And try to do it from Monday through Friday.
Steve, when are they going to show the lines for the first time?
Well, still working on them, so it'll probably be another month. So it'll probably one of the last things we do in the session.
The last minute, probably.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, maybe y'all can get it worked out so we don't have a special on it. I mean, after the special, after the regular session.
Right.
Well, folks, our time's up. I want to again thank my guest, Representative Steve Klaus from Ozark, for being with us tonight, and hope you viewers have enjoyed our show talking about the state's problems and reapportionment and things like that. We'll have Steve back on again, and thanks you viewers in the Wiregrass. Hope you'll enjoy seeing your hometown popular Representative Steve Klaus on the show. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. And thank you, Representative Klaus.
Thank you, Steve.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.